If Patti LuPone was British, she'd be a dame. Patti LuPone, indeed.
Graham Norton.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by.
That is the great Patti LuPone, and she's here. The trooping of the colour couldn't stop her. I had visions of you getting out of your car, running. I can make it.
I didn't even know, but I did see it coming in yesterday. I saw a great big field, and I went, oh, what's going on? They said, something's going on tomorrow. They didn't say what.
Yeah, and what did they explain? That it would nearly ruin my chances of meeting you. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, so am I. Thank you so much.
Now, what should I start with? Well, I should start by saying I saw you in Gypsy on Broadway, and it was just the best thing in the world ever.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Like, the last night of that, you should have just gone, yeah, that's the best performance you'll ever see, and I'm retiring now. Because it was just amazing. It was just
Thank you.
Astonishing.
Thank you.
How long did you do that for?
We did it for 10 months. We were sort of handicapped because there had been a revival of Gypsy 5 years earlier, and it's a little soon to bring back another production of a revival. But it was Arthur's desire, and that would be Arthur Lawrence.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible experience. I know Arthur has a pretty hard reputation, but this was done out of love of his partner of 50 years who had died. And Tom, on his deathbed, said that, I'm supposed to keep Arthur alive. He should do this, and he should do it with me. And we did it, and it was a production. I mean, I could cry now. I haven't had an experience like that in the theater where everybody owned their roles and were responsible to them, and nobody called off. I don't know what it's like on the British musical stage, but any excuse not to perform seems to be the norm in American musical theater. In the chorus and the dancers, not the principals,
But it seemed like it was so definitive. It seemed like every scene, every song had been fully explored and just open. It was just amazing.
Well,
I'm sure this is very boring for people who didn't see it, but I'm liking talking about it.
Well, well, I'll tell you something interesting. In the rehearsal process of this, Arthur told us, because he cast Boyd Gaines as Herbie and Laura Benanti as Louise, and we were very interested in the scenes. And he at one point told us that it had never been rehearsed. The scenes had never been rehearsed. We were dumbstruck. But in musical theater, when you gather for the first day, the chorus goes in one place, the dancers go someplace else, the principal goes someplace else, and you don't come together to read the play to understand what it is we're all going into separate corners for. And we did that for a week and a half, just the play and speaking the lyrics, and it investigated that play, which can stand alone. So I think that's why it was such a good production, because the play didn't get lost in the music.
It was just amazing. How you did it for 10 months. After one night, I was like...
Me too.
I mean, because the songs just build and build and build. And
yeah, the first 20 minutes are killer.
You must have been just like a rag every night.
I was, until I went to Gillian Lynn, the great British choreographer. She came and saw me. She said, how are you doing? I said, I'm dying on the vine. What do I do? And she sent me to a nutritionist in New York City, Oz Garcia, who turned my life around, and eating habits and vitamins, and I ended stronger than I started. And one should, in a long run, end stronger than one starts. But this was essential, because Boyd and I would come off in the middle of the first act after the Grant Singer thing, panting, and just looking at each other going, what the did we get ourselves into? And it turned it around, and I'm still on that regimen.
Well, you look great, I have to say.
Well, you're a doll, thanks.
You look fantastic. Very bushy-tailed for someone who just got in from New York. And which is good.
I'm happy to be in London.
And it's good because you need to be bushy-tailed because you start tomorrow night.
I start tomorrow night,
Let's talk about something people can see. Yes. This is you at the Leicester Square Theatre in London. It's basically a week, isn't it? Sunday to Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah? Am I right?
Mondays off and Fridays off for me.
Oh, okay.
Seth performs.
Now, yes. Now, am I stupid? Should I know who Seth Rudetsky is?
Well, Seth Rudetsky is among those of us in the business in New York. Audra McDonald has called him the mayor of Broadway. He is an obsessed scholar of musical theater.
Wow.
And he has been an accompanist. He's been a conductor. And he is his own personality. And I've known Seth for years. We've all known Seth for years. And this was Seth's idea. This is Seth's show. And Seth does this with several women. He does it with Audra. He does it with Sutton Foster, Megan Mullally, Betty Buckley, me, and I think that's maybe, I don't know who else he does it with. And what he does, he deconstructs each of our voices, and then he interviews us and asks us to sing. So I never know what I'm going to sing, nor I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what Seth is going to ask me. And when Seth is on, it's a pretty funny show.
Wow. And so, but it does say on my piece of paper here that maybe I shouldn't tell you this.
No.
If you don't know what you're singing.
I have kind of an idea.
Yeah, that you are going to perform some songs from Evita that you haven't performed live really since.
Yes, there's somebody apparently that's on the road that's playing Magaldi in Evita, and I believe he tweeted Seth that he would like to do the Ava Magaldi scene with me, and so I have been struggling with, do you think that a man as famous as you are, going back to that score, it's 30 years later, over 30 years later, but it's fun to sing it again. And I said, don't you think we should audition him? What if he sucks? And we're not going to do that. But so I don't know when he's showing up. And I know that Seth and I have rehearsed it. And I did a workshop of a new musical just recently, so I couldn't really work on it. And last night, my husband said, I should work, but I'm just so damn tired. He said, you better work, Patti. So I went through it again last night, but who knows what's going to happen on the night with the voice and with the notes.
And so Evita, that's when certainly we over this side of the pond got to know you. Was that your big break, or were you known already?
Well, I don't think I was. How do I say this? I was with an acting company that would have a month's residency in New York City for 4 years. So I was known within the theater community. I had a Tony nomination out of one of those productions. But I hit, as they say, with Evita. But I don't know how Elaine handled it, and I don't know how the British press and the British audiences handled Evita here, but in New York and in LA and San Francisco, where I played it, the production I was bombed, and the production was dismissed. And there was a great deal of controversy about putting a Nazi sympathizer on a stage. And we encountered a lot of hostility in New York City.
Really?
Yeah. And London and L.A. And, yeah, it was tough. And Mandy played Che, Mandy Patinkin played Che. Mandy and I would invisibly rope the audience every night. Because it also got... there's one thing to get bad notices, passionately bad notices, and one thing to get passionately great notices. But when you're dismissed, that's the worst. And we were dismissed. Hal's work was dismissed. Our performances were dismissed. And so the audience, when they came in night after night, were angry. And Mandy and I would have to invisibly lasso them to us. And by the end of the night, and by the end of our run, we had this huge hit, but it was unbelievable work.
So you kind of built the hit over the run. Mm-hmm. Was it word of mouth, or did people come back and re-review it, or
word of mouth? No, word of mouth. No, because it was very poorly reviewed. Word of mouth, and the obsession with Evita Peron.
And I don't know when you said this, but there's just a quote again on my bit of paper that that production, it was the worst experience of my life, says you. Yep. Was it really that bad?
Oh yeah, it was. It was terrible. And you don't want to say that, but it's the truth. I was given a role that I didn't want to play, quite frankly. I heard the music. I didn't like it. I thought Andrew Lloyd Webber hated women. It's pitched in an area of a woman's voice that's called the passaggio, which is her weakest place. Like a rubber band. When you stretch a rubber band, there's going to be a very weak place, and that's the passaggio in a voice, and it sat there in my passaggio. It sat on those notes. I also encountered the hype. It was the first musical to either come over for England or start in America that had that much hype before it opened.
Yeah,
and so there was an expectation of the person, whoever it was, playing the part of Evita, and I couldn't sing it, and I couldn't take the hype. I was a kid. I was like, Mandy and I were scared out of our minds, just paralyzed with fear. And so, but every night I would go on stage going, am I going to hit that first D? And if I hit that first D wrong, which is screw the middle classes, it's the first, 10 minutes of the show. And that was going to set off the voice for the rest of the night, which would set it off badly for the rest of the week. And I was determined to go on stage every night.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of a performer where I think...
And have you kissed and made up with Andrew Lloyd Webber?
No.
But you did Sunset.
That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I guess she didn't come to town to see him. No.
I have too many other friends I want to see.
But Sunset Boulevard was a big hit for you.
Yeah, and we had a great company. It was a great company of actors and singers and dancers, and we were having a great time. And then I wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because were you promised that you would go to Broadway?
I had a contract.
Really?
Oh, I had a signed contract.
So did it all go to court and it was all...
Well, it was arbitrated here by a very powerful lawyer in New York who flew over. I think he said it was like 15 hours of arbitration. It's a long time. Yeah.
Well, on that dark note, we're going to go to music now. Yeah, well, basically, I want the real dirt. So, so let's play a record. It's you singing. What is this? Oh, this is from Anything Goes. Lovely.
Oh, great.
Yes, this is I Get a Kick Out of You.
Oh, cool.
My story is much too sad to be told.
The voice of Patti LuPone, and Patti LuPone's listening to herself. Is that do you enjoy that in any way?
No. No, I've never seen anything that I've done, and I don't ever listen. I mean, I suppose I listened once. I just saw an interview with Jessica Lange, who's now starring in, I don't know whether you guys have gotten it over here yet, American Horror Story.
We do get it, but it's on a weird channel here.
Oh, it's so wild. And I just saw an interview with Jessie, and she has not seen any of the episodes, and she's going into her third season, and I understand that. I didn't feel so bad. I thought it was paranoia. I didn't know what it was, that I didn't want to see anything or hear myself. You know what I've said forever? I'm just not a big fan of me, and that's the truth. And so, I'm going to be terribly critical, and I don't want to be depressed, so I don't listen to myself, and I don't look at myself on camera. And I leave the productions that I'm in behind me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think production theatre is different because I think that's the joy of theatre.
Right,
is that
right,
it's a shared memory and
Yes.
it's gone. You can't recapture it, it's gone.
Right.
But with TV and stuff, I always think, like, if I don't watch it, why will anyone else watch it?
Well, you have to like yourself then, right?
Well,
I don't necessarily like myself. What's the station I'm on?
Therapy.
Exactly. No, but it's also, I think you just become terribly, terribly critical. I'm not necessarily satisfied with my performances when I'm doing them. So, and I think there's probably great lessons in watching and in listening to oneself for improvement. But I just get a little too nervous and too down on myself, and so I avoid it.
You see, I have incredibly low standards, so I can watch myself easily. Okay, let's go to emails and texts and things, because there's been a lot of questions in for you. Marion in Coventry wants to know, growing up, who were your Broadway heroes and heroines? Because you grew up in Long Island.
Long Island,
so you
yeah.
had access to Broadway.
Yes. Ethel Merman, Rosalind Russell, Mary Martin, but the one person in my life, and Betty Davis was my film heroine. I would cut school, and if we had a thing called Bowling for Dollars or Dialing for Dollars, I think it was, and it was a 10 o'clock and a 1 o'clock show, and I would go to school. But if there was a Betty Davis movie on TV, I'd find a way to cut school, go home and watch it, and a Busby Berkeley musical. But the one that sends chills at my spine and raises the hair on my arms and breaks my heart and is the epitome for me is Edith Piaf.
Wow. Did you see her live?
No, never. Just albums.
Yeah.
But Edith Piaf is the one that had the most influence on me.
Have you done Piaf or...
No, and I was offered right after Evita, Jane Lapotaire came to Broadway with Piaf.
Yeah.
And after Jane had won the Tony and left, I was offered it, and I thought, no, they're going to think they're seeing Jane. And I'm sorry that I turned it down because I would love to have. I think it's a great play, that Pam Gem's play, and I wished I had, but I really, Jane did win the Tony and then left, I think, a week later. And
wow, that's class. Thank you. Bye.
that's what a lot of the Brits do, actually. I got to tell you, we're stuck. But they've got the contracts. We're stuck in these, like, all right, you're in it now for 20 more years. And the Brits can pick up their Tonys and go home. It's true.
What else are we doing? What decides whether a show succeeds or fails on Broadway? And how do you come to terms with a Broadway flop? Olivia Fincham, right?
Oh, Olivia, that's a tough question because I don't think you can really... I don't think you can define a hit or a flop. But there's just a really fine line, invisible line, of what makes a hit and what makes it a flop. And I think... If in America we lowered our ticket prices on Broadway, audiences could make up their own minds and wouldn't have to rely on the New York Times as the critic to tell us what we think. And I think we have a big problem on Broadway right now, where Wall Street has hijacked Broadway, and they're not in it for the love of the theater. I don't know anybody that goes to Broadway or goes into theater, period, to make money. It's not a money-making proposition. I don't know what your hit is here, but ours, of course, is Wicked. And there can only be one Wicked a decade, really. But we have a lot of Wall Street fat cats who are either money laundering, on Broadway. Yeah. And when they don't get the reviews they want, they shut the play down, and they don't figure out. They're not showmen, so they don't know how to run it. They don't know how to bring an audience in. And I just had that experience with David Mamet's The Anarchist, where the primary money person was from Wall Street. And so I've decided if I ever go back to Broadway, I'm sitting down with the producers to find out exactly how they spend their money before I sign on. Because we were all unemployed, and they took their money and went to another production. But he put an entire building out of work. And David has a built-in audience.
Yeah.
Totally has a built-in audience. You have to get beyond the reviews. You have to have the ingenuity to get beyond the reviews if they're bad. And in the old days, David Merrick or Alex Cohen would never let a critic tell him his show was a flop. He would do something to outwit them. Because
with Evita, if the reviews were bad, were the advance sales so great that it could keep going?
Not necessarily, but there. I don't think Hal was going to let it flop. Hal's office was general managing it. And you have to be clever. And we don't have those kinds of producers anymore. We don't have clever men of the theater.
Is that why you get
New York.
Is that why you get a lot of kind of those cynical just film adaptation musicals now? Because they just kind of think...
Well, probably, because we're not encouraging our young playwrights and lyricists and composers. And a lot of that stuff should be seen because I want to be able to grow with that composer, and that composer needs to grow with an audience. But they're looking for a surefire hit, I think.
Anthony, who has a question? Back in 1985, did you have any idea that Les Mis would become the huge hit it has?
Yes, I did.
Because how did they find you? How did you end up in it? And all
well,
that?
I had worked for Cameron in Oliver in New York City. And one night he came into my dressing room, and I was in the Nancy drag, and he said, "Oh, you'd be perfect for a role in Les Mis." I said, "Great. When and where?" He said, "London next year." I went, "Well, there goes that." Then the acting company was doing a revival of The Cradle Will Rock, and we were coming to London at the Old Vic. And I believe Cameron saw my picture in the newspaper as coming over, and he called me up, came to my apartment in New York, and put on the French production. I heard the first 4 bars, went, "This is a hit. This is a hit." I just, in my bones, knew it. And I said yes on the spot. I didn't know anything about Fantine. I didn't know anything about... he said Royal Shakespeare Company, London, and I heard that music, and I went, and I knew it was going to be a hit. It was a hit when we opened it at the Barbican. Trevor and John said to the company right before we opened, now don't expect too much from the audience. These are people who have come to see Shakespeare, not musicals. And I will never forget the first preview where people were standing up, screaming bravo at the stage and clapping with their hands over their head. And I went, that's what I thought. Huge hit.
What a lovely feeling. Hey, more stories, everything you want to know about Patti LuPone and more we revealed when she appears for just 7 performances at the Leicester Square Theatre with Seth Rudetsky. It opens tomorrow and it goes on to next Sunday, not on Monday, not on Friday.
For me, but I think Seth is on.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. They're going to see you. Don't pretend.
Oh, they'll laugh their ass off at Seth, though. He's a funny guy.
A real honour to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. No wonder I don't get paid.